Hello there, my third video about the Battle of Five Armies. Um, I was watching the video I made and I figured I could clarify some other things about if you're playing the Shadow and you're struggling as a Shadow player. Sometimes you see yourself in situations where uh, you really doubt about pursuing uh, Ruins of Dale or Camp or anything else than the Eastern Spurs because um, you see the free people player too well armed, and that's where uh, maybe that's where this idea that you should muster and wait for future rounds come from. For instance, let's imagine an opening game for the free people's player when and let's assume the blue guys uh, have been really lucky and successful, and after three rounds, three action rounds, they've used this combination to bring um, to bring this army here made of four units uh, plus nine. Ruins of Dale now has a dwarf veteran and a lakeman, um, and and the and the free people player. Then it's now as the shadow player, you've managed to bring your army here to uh, this northern spot here that I told you it's a good spot for the shadow player. And now the free people player is just about to set you a trap. He's going to use this die, his character die, to bring those troops here to Ruins of Dale. It could have been something else, like uh, there are games where the free people player will bring those two guys here. But whatever. Let's assume he's really the free people player is really trying to lock you up. Well, what you are the shadow player. What should you do? Should you wait in this situation? Um, well, it's not a bad situation to it's not sometimes yes if you don't have if you're feeling like you're running out of options, um, you should maybe think about doing something else, but not always. um, to make this configuration, the free people player at this point only has another die, maybe a number of combinations. And what you fear the most when you're in this situation is, even though let's say you attack Dale or the our camp or whatever, you can you become fearful that the blue guys are going to retreat and counterattack with another force. So you attack Dale, it retreats somewhere along something like this after you manage to attack, and then from the free people player just counters attack from guys from camp with a fresh army uh, after you've you've had one or two uh, hits. You've hit once or twice. Well, the good news is you also have another army ready to enter the battle, and that's this army around here. Um, so let's see. Let's sometimes you'll be lucky and you have something like hurry multitude that allows you to move uh, two armies up to two spaces. So if suddenly you just bring this army here, and you may, or perhaps here, or I don't know, um, anything will work. This is a situation where you might want to go for Eastern Spur, just move the second army here and make a combined attack. Eastern Spurs will fall, uh, and then you go towards camp with whatever you can. The problem with this approach is that, from as I told you earlier, the blue guys are much stronger from the second round um, onwards, and uh, what he'll probably do is he'll keep uh, bringing troops to camp and sending those troops out towards ruins of the Io, Fallen Bridge, and whatever to try to um, reinforce those to those feed arms. Not worse still, um, the free people have a lot um, of cards like these flying banners that allows you to choose two different settlements and place and flip recruitment tokens there. So the first I will tell you if you have a card like Hurrying Multitude, you might just decide to use it. Something like this, right? And you have something like this. And now it's the free people player turn. Um, uh, something like this. It's the free people player's turn, and he decides to pass. He can do this, so you have a double turn now. Um, he just wants to see what you're up to, what you're going to do. If you can, here's a good spot. If you can attack camp from this position here, it's better most of the time than attacking from here. Sure, you risk maybe the free people player has something like dense fog or something that will end the turn and trap you here, and but you shouldn't be too concerned about that. It's not going to be too different from anything else. The good the good thing, if you manage to attack from this position here, is that the free people player will not be able to run anywhere else that is not this place here. Um, so that's a good tip, I believe. If you're thinking about taking camp and you don't want to deal with a retreating army towards the front gate, uh, or anything like this, like the sort, that's an option. If you manage to do that, I'll just tell you what I told you earlier. Don't be afraid. An attack from Ruins of Dale across the fort is not the best idea for the free people player. Um, and a counterattack from this position is really unlikely to have tremendous success, especially if they decided to regroup first. Another thing, bats. I told you you should use the Bat Cloud ability, but you also should have another bats for battle, for combats, because that's probably the best card you have at your disposal. Why do I say that? Well, Great Arcs, they seem to be great at first, but they are, even if you have two of them, they only add two black die to your to your to that combat round, right? Um, and even if it hits, your opponent has the opportunity to simply forfeit leadership. That's great if you can follow that, keep keep fighting that for until the again until the end of the turn. But it's really bad for the turn's end, because on the next turn the free people player um, will uh, back have his leadership back, and it will attack you probably first, and after dealing you some damage. You don't want this kind of stuff. That's why I keep telling you, if you shouldn't be afraid to attack if you only have one die to do it. But if you have two dice to attack, two possible attacks to make, you're better off this way. Um, so you've managed to push these guys back. It's likely, after using your bat ability, uh, your vampire-like ability, that you've managed to make, you're throwing more dice, and it's likely you've dealt at least the same amount of damage, probably more, especially if the free people player just played a regroup card. If that's the case, you keep attacking. The second time the free people player retreats, it's going to retreat towards this position. It cannot retreat any further. Um, Unfortunately, you will probably not have many dice to attack anymore. It's unlikely. It may happen. It's unlikely. Um, so what should you do? Well, I tend to think that you should sacrifice one unit or two and leave them and advance them towards this position. Um, Together with any damage you have. Um, why would I say something like that? Uh, maybe maybe you're just, you can leave. I don't know. Um, you can advance with your best army. You can, because you keep fighting. That's why. The free people player will not be able to eliminate every unit you have, uh, and um, and that's if you're badly beaten. Sometimes it's best for you to just split the army up, um, and and uh, get rid of useless junk, especially if you have cards like orcs from Gundabad. If you have something like this, you should be splitting armies when you attack, because you reinforce your best army after that, and it's really unlikely Gandalf or Thranduil are going to eliminate that better army of yours. So say you send those two guys here with I don't know, 2 damage, and let's say you've been beaten really bad, and you have something like this: 2 damage here and another damage here. And let's say this army here is on it's on the limit. It has 4 hits. I would expect in most games you would have you probably eliminated a unit there, but we are talking about a game where the free people player is just uh, beyond normal luck, right? So this army is still intact. It has 4 damage over there. If if this happens, you're in great shape, because it's really unlikely, even after a Trundle or Gandalf attack, this army is going to counter attack you. And this army here, it's not really the same as this army, because it doesn't have um, dying here. It will most likely have just a single unit right here, and there is another army coming your way. You see this second army here. Only just the presence of this army is enough for not for keeping this army in check. Um, say you don't have any card like this, any good card like this. Um, then yes, if you don't have anything to reinforce and you feel you're you're still better off than the opposing army, yes, maybe it's a good idea to have just have 3 of them, and maybe you don't need to. I don't know. I would, even still, I'll say, I'll tell you to split your army with at least 1 unit, but because you never know what you're getting, if you're not getting another card. And there's another great stuff that happens, is that you'll be able to have um, to place 2 leadership tokens here, and then you may reunite your army, and you have again 2 leadership for this army here. But let's imagine you don't want to attack camp. You want to go for Rings of Dale. If you want to go to the Eastern Spurs, it's easy. You just try to make a combined attack, and it's quite probable that the Eastern Spurs will will fall. Especially if you have anything like um, like this card here. I've lost my card again. I'm terrible at this. Sorry, guys. Um, I lost it. I don't know. It's anything like no quarter or battle fury. That will allow you to hit that to 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 destroy this fortification quickly, because um, yeah, that's your main obstacle here in Ruins of Dale. This dwarf here, I told in the my first video that you should rejoice when you see the free people player advancing towards this position, and that's basically because it will the free people will needs to spend at least one die to do this, um, and because you can just let this dwarf over there if you've managed. Sometimes another thing will happen is you have a bunch of eye die results in the first round, and you open this pot here, and then that's if that's the plan or maybe in the next round, you see that dwarf is not here anymore. It will not be able to. It will not be of much help for anything else besides defending this place here. And trust me, it's tough for the last. But let's imagine you don't want to. You back to my example. You decided you go towards Ruins of Dale instead of going towards camp. Well, so you've attacked from this position, and let's say you were successful. You keep attacking until the free people player decides to retreat. Um, some with this configuration, I've seen it happens a lot for the free people to just retreat to this position, allowing you to just go around here and then bringing people from camp to attack this position here. Well, if you sometimes you won't care because you have that card that allows you to recruit 3 wards here, and it's it may be incredibly effective. The free people player also is counting on not having to deal of having time to deal with this army before you will get to this position, and quite rightfully so. It's really hard to get there before they have the chance to go back. So you're the shadow player. What should you do? Well, there are a couple of things you can do. The first one is brace for impact, especially if you have a dense fog here. And this card here, it's sometimes yes, the shallow player should use dense fog too. It's probably at least as valuable to the shadow player as it is to the free people player. Um, Sometimes just brace for impacts and keep bringing this army here towards this position. If camp is like this, or sometimes a unit will be left behind, it doesn't matter. Sometimes that dwarf here will be brought to camp, doesn't matter. If you've managed to get to this position here, the free people player will have to retreat. So so that's good news for you. Sometimes it depends on how exactly is the condition of your army. You don't want to risk a combined attack, being the aim of combined attack by the free people player. So you just what you can do is just advance the useless junk, whatever you believe it's the useless junk, towards the ruins of Dale. You know you'll lose it, but at least you have this army around to reinforce it, and maybe and just maybe try to, let's see, maybe that's the condition you're faced with, and this army should have a lot of units. If that's if that this happen, if you're thinking about doing something like this army is probably not the one you're worried about. It probably has four or more damage here as well. You're probably worried about this army around here because this is a very strong army. And what you do, you again just use this army to keep following. Sometimes uh, you see some really foolish moves by the free people player, like trying to attack this second army with these units here. It's seldom enough. And after you're here, even if the next thing you do, if you split your, if you decided to split your army, or it doesn't matter, you split your army, or you kept them together, bracing for impact. Um, I recommend you just do this if you're really sure you last until you can retreat, uh, at least. Um, you see that this uh, configuration here is really bad for the shadow player because it's not going to be the your arm the first army here will not going to, it's not going to be able to retreat to anywhere, any place, because you're surrounded by the free people player. So you take another hit when you decide to retreat. That's why I'm telling you, you must be sure you be you can you just leave this unit here, this army intact here, if you're sure you be able to resist this second attack until you can retreat. And bring Vogue. Now, I keep telling you to bring Vogue into play because Vogue's just great. Sometimes you'll be really lucky and you have another warg right in the in this place where you're bringing Vogue. Sometimes you have another great orc, which is even better. And sometimes you have useless orcs. They are not so useless. I love their ability to bring more leadership. But in Vogue's army, as you know, Vogue already have the guy has three leadership tokens, three leadership already. So you you're not going to be needing much more than that. You're probably placing another leadership each turn at the beginning of each turn anyway. So this army here is really uh, you know, this first army it's going to get obliterated anyhow. There's no way it's going to survive long. What you can do, and you do quite successfully most times, is save the two great orcs. You you'll be able to do that from not every game, but some games you'll be able to do that. Um, Sometimes you'll be able to, you know, just make those guys meet, like something like that. You have the two great arcs here. You advance it with something like 3 units here, and on the next turn you just combine the three orcs with the two orcs, leaving the two great orcs, leaving two little orcs behind. And that's a great arm. It's it's flexible enough for another attempt at camp or Rings of Dale. Um, in my last game, I didn't take camp. I went for Rings. I fainted Rings of Dale and took the lower slopes. That's also possible. That's also a possibility. So let's, as my first 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 turn, first round. Um, how can this happen? You say. If you decide to just decide for a change, you know, do something different based on cards usually, to place leadership here. Right. Well, leave it the way it is. Just for argument's sake, you know how the board should be, right? This place was definitely not that well protected, but this what was, and maybe something like this. Yes. Okay. Sometimes you place your three uh, leadership tokens at the beginning of the first turn, right? You do the usual. You bring those guys here, or you try to recruit. Yes, you try to recruit. Sometimes it's going to be an orc, but sometimes it's going to be two orcs. Sometimes it's going to be a great orc, right? Well, my preferred uh, method is to just bring two guys here, unless you have some cards that tell you otherwise, that allows you to recruit in the middle of the board, and this happens. So what I did something like that. I just advanced, right? Recruited, attacked. So it had uh, something like that. Um, these two guys retreated badly. They were really hurt by the attack, right? Now, I've seen the free purple player just re retreating those two guys. There are I see there are some crazy fellows that just do this every game. Uh, it's not going to work every game. But sometimes they just leave it around the fort to embrace, and there is a good reason to retreat back to this position here, and the reason is you don't want to allow the free people the shadow player to advance um, another every time you retreat, you're giving ground to the shadow player, and that's really bad. So that, what I'm trying to tell you is this: some games the free people player will just use a die, an army to bring these guys to this place, to this spot here. If that's the case, it's another reason for you to just go the usual route north towards camp, and then you decide, and then you have those two great options I told you about, just attacking range of the or camp. But sometimes the free people player will just leave these two guys here, and will embrace, prepare to receive the attack your 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 men to towards, just expecting an attack towards camp ruins of the UR the Eastern Spurs. If those two guys are here, it is a good spot to attack, especially if you have that amazing card that allows you to um, 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 I believe I've just paused and search for the card. Well, I'm back. Especially if you have this card, Move to Strike. It allows you to move your army with leadership up to 2 regions and then attack. Uh, you see, you sometimes you just have you advance three regions with a single uh, die, and that's awesome. There's no describing how awesome that is. Um, Now, from then, you should never attack this army again, even if it has something like 2 dice here. I really don't see the need to. Um, and well, so I've done this, and what the guy does is he has some guys here. It was definitely mm, nothing like that, but what he does is he sends a dwarf veteran and another guy, something like this, towards this position, right? So Ruins of Dale is fortified again, and this army, the second army, even though it's attacking first, it's still my second army. It's no match for this army here. I know that. What should you do? Well, this army is badly hurt unless the free people player decides to rally. What you do just keep going. Now you're probably bringing this army here with another army die. Then you just, on the next move, you just move and attack. Even if lower slope has 3 elves here, uh, it's no match for this army here. And and better still, there's not many places where to where I mean this army here won't be retreating towards Ruins of Dale. It's not. It's only it needs. It's almost mandatory. It's going to go towards Fallen Bridge or towards Ravenhill. After you've done that, that's probably the beginning of the game, um, as it was in my case, and you're in great position to keep pursuing this army until it's gone. Should not be afraid to do that. The free people player is going to have a really hard time making a combined attack with using this army here. Uh, it's in a crappy position here in camp, even though it intends the free people player intends uh, to uh, even though the free people player intends to uh, keep recruiting and mastering this region. Um, well, after you've conquered the lower slopes, your first arm is probably around here. It's obviously not made that. It's probably something like this, right? It doesn't have, yes, something like this. And just remember, you've done that using just 1, 2, 3 dice. 3 dice. It's all you need to take the lower slopes if you have the right card, that move to strike card. And the free people player just left those 2 guys here. You see? Um, so, final thoughts. You are the shadow player, and you're having a really hard time. There's no need to despair, my friend, because you see, the free people player, even though the free people have amazing cards and uh, all kind of uh, magic stuff it can do. Uh, it doesn't know where you are going to strike. After you have some games under your belt, you start recognizing uh, well, if he places a leadership token over there and a leadership token over there, well, he's probably going to uh, move those troops. He's probably going to use these spots are the ones he's intending to protect. Also, as the shadow player, you should try to react to what the free people player is doing, and sometimes you just burst with an attack like that before the free people player has had any uh, any time to actually move those units, and it's going to be a great game for you. I mean, just just know this: you can get to lower slopes on the first turn. You can get to camp on the first turn. You don't have to conquer the eastern spurs. Most times I see a shadow player uh, having a hard time is because he's stuck with this mindset that he needs to get the eastern spurs, or that he needs to get Dale, or that he needs to get those two that seven die. That's awesome. Seven dice is always great. But you trust me, you'll be great if you don't need to be amazing. You don't have to have an amazing army. You just have to have armies that are better than the ones the free people have. Well, I believe for now that's it. Thank you again, and I hope uh, this time I've really done it and helped you. If not, please leave your comment. Uh, but so bear with me. Uh, Thank you.